Good morning, everyone. Welcome. Just going to let a few more of you come in before we get started. I can hear lots of the Teams beeps happening. All right, so good morning. Welcome to another Spring Innovation Showcase, this time in partnership with South West Water and AiDash. Thank you very much to AiDash for giving us this space to do the showcase in. My name's Carly Perry. I'm Managing Director of Spring Innovation. For those who don't know us, we are the Innovation Centre of Excellence for the water sector in the UK and Ireland. We're supported by all water companies across the UK and Ireland, as well as the supply chain. And we've been created to enable collaboration and accelerate innovation in the sector. What that means is specifically, our objective is to remove duplication of innovation. So there are fantastic pockets of innovation happening on a regional level, but nationally, a really conservative average is that an innovation project is duplicated 4 times. So we are here to help remove that duplication. And there's a number of different ways that we're doing that. So we have the Water Innovation Strategy is a document that we are custodians of, but that was a document that was created by the sector for the sector back in 2020. That document has a list of all of the sector-wide ambitions that we all want to achieve on a short, medium and long-term basis. It has 7 themes in it. The particular theme that we're talking about today is protecting and enhancing natural systems. So this is a really great example of a project that is helping to achieve some of the ambitions that are in that Water Innovation Strategy. If you haven't read it and want to read it, it's on the Spring website, but we're also going to drop a link to it in the chat as well, so you can have easy access to that. But that's the foundation of everything that we want to enable within the innovation ecosystem alongside others that are playing in this space. In terms of our service offering, we have a number of different touch points across the innovation process where we're trying to remove duplication. So one is at the beginning of the innovation process, we are actually building collaborative projects to solve the priority problems so that collaboration happens early in the process, bringing efficiencies to everybody within that particular project. We're also running these knowledge transfer sessions where it's all about accelerating learning across the sector. So for other water companies who are on the line, you will be able to learn from South West Water, take those lessons and embed them into your business and hopefully accelerate the process that you're going through to solve similar problems. We're also trying to break down barriers in terms of innovation culture and mobilizing trials and adopting innovation. So we're working on the softer side of things as well as creating a suite of tools that look at what existing innovation is happening. What we want to do is create a place where water companies can come to search for innovations that they need and can access in a fast track way innovation that already exists. So these knowledge transfer sessions have been fantastic for us so far. This is number 10. This is showcase number 10. We've had over 1,250 people registered for these over those 10. We are in a place of about 96% of the attendees that come to these say that they will be embedding the learnings from it. So that's really the KPI that we want to follow to make sure that the knowledge is actually being embedded going forwards, and there will be a survey at the end of this to ask you your views on that as well. We get attendance from the majority of the water companies coming and listening to this, so hello for any of the familiar faces out there. Thank you for coming along. These sessions really are about you listening, learning and taking those lessons. So I encourage you to do that and actively get involved and ask questions at the places where you can. So all that's left for me to do is introduce the session today and our speakers and say a huge thank you again to South West Water for coming on this knowledge sharing journey with us, to AiDash for being very open about the innovation and the insights that they've got from the project that they've worked on with South West Water, and also to the Spring team behind the scenes who do a fantastic job at putting these showcases together. So in terms of who we are going to talk to, and in true me style, the clicker does not work. I am jinxed with the clicker, so bear with me. There we go. Okay, so in terms of our speakers today, We have Caroline Cadman, who is Director of Natural Resources at South West Water. We have Jules Florey, who is Biodiversity Delivery Manager at South West Water. And we have Morag Leopold, who is Customer Success Manager at AiDash. So you have a team of ladies who are going to share some really interesting insights with you through this session. In terms of what the session looks like, we're going to go into setting the context next, and then we'll have a demo of the tool that's actually involved within this project, so you'll see it live in action. We'll then go into the insights that have been created through this work. And we ask the team behind this to be very honest and open about what's worked well, what hasn't worked well, sharing those stories that will really help you to accelerate your learning. And then there's going to be a Q&A session at the end where you can ask your questions of the team. So as we go through, please make sure that you are submitting your questions in, and then there's a team at this end that will be able to facilitate the Q&A at the end. So with that in mind, a huge thank you again to everybody involved. And I'm going to hand over to Caroline Cadman, who is Director of Natural Resources at South West Water. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, Carly. Great to be here. Thank you for asking us to come along. When I say here, I'm in Falmouth, down in mid-Cornwall. It's quite murky looking outside of my window, but I can see the sea. So I'm very lucky in that respect. So South West Water, for those of you that don't know, covers areas of Devon, Cornwall, the Isles of Scilly, parts of Dorset, Somerset and Hampshire. And if I'm being completely honest, I had some reservations at the outset of working with AiDash, because my background, I have previously been Chief Exec of Cornwall Wildlife Trust, and I've worked in Natural England and other environmental regulator bodies. And I've always been of the opinion that you need humans to go out and check ecology, and you need humans to go out on the ground with the boots on to go out and find out what's out there. So when AiDash was presented to me as an option that would be helpful for South West Water last year, I was a little bit sceptical, but I've gone on a journey and I'm now truly a champion and an advocate, and excited about sharing the opportunities that come from this solution with us, with you rather. What you can see on the screen is a biodiversity opportunity enhancement map that South West Water has produced for every single site that we own, and those maps should demonstrate the scale of our land holdings and operational areas. We own around 6,500 hectares of land across the southwest, and that's spread out over 2,000 sites, some of which are quite tiny, that just house a small descriptive works for wastewater treatment, for example, and others are quite large, big significant land holdings that we own and manage, for example, on Burrator, Dartmoor in Devon. And what you can see on the right-hand side of the screen here is a map of one of our sites, which is the dark black line. You can see the land that we own around this lake, and you can see some of the designated sites that are also close by that we have to think about when we're managing our land, and the priority designation. So if we go on to the next slide, what we then start to see with AiDash is a tool which can help us understand the condition of our land holdings. Sorry, if we go back to the previous slide, please. And what AiDash helps us to do is to look at each of those sites and to see what the current land holding is, and therefore where the opportunity for biodiversity enhancement is, in line with the biodiversity performance commitment that all water companies are responsible for delivering from 2025. So what we did, each site has been reviewed by AiDash, and then going back to my scepticism, we have ground truthed a lot of the information that AiDash has pulled together using humans with boots on the ground, and we're pleased that there is a really good correlation between what's on the AiDash system and what the ecologists and the professionals are finding on the ground too. So that's really good. So what we're effectively doing is testing out the efficiency and the ability of AI, the AiDash system, to actually represent reality on the ground when it comes to our habitat conditions, as well as building on the work we've already done to map the biodiversity opportunities. And if we move on to the next slide, what you can see is that all of this is aligned with our biodiversity strategy that South West Water has as a company. And in that biodiversity strategy, we're focusing on growing nature in 3 ways. So firstly, we're going to maintain and enhance the special sites that we have across the Southwest. We're a proud owner and manager of a lot of SSSIs and other priority habitats. So we're going to make sure we protect those. Secondly, across our entire land holdings, we're going to restore and enhance biodiversity. So we're taking action where we can to make our land better for biodiversity, to introduce as much biodiversity enhancements as possible, and to take decisions in the everyday management of our sites, which also support biodiversity and low carbon. And then finally, beyond our land holdings, South West Water is working with partners, the Wildlife Trusts, West Country Rivers Trust, and other organisations like the South West Lakes Trust, who manage our sites like this one behind me. That's Roadford Reservoir in Devon, and this is the land around it. We work with our partners to increase biodiversity, and through things like catchment management, in partnership with other people. So those are the 3 strands of our biodiversity strategy: protecting the best, restoring and enhancing the rest, and working beyond our land holdings in collaboration with others. And this is all particularly important in terms of the threats that we are facing to the biodiversity on our land. And if we move on to the next slide, we've just summarised some of the threats that biodiversity is under. Urbanisation, maybe less of an impact in the Southwest than in other parts of the country, but it's still, we've still got house building targets, and we've still got people paving over their front gardens and making the landscape less permeable. We've got pollution, we've got climate change, we've got invasive non-native species, which we're particularly vulnerable to down in the Southwest with our maritime climate and warm, wetter and windier climate too. We've got climate change changing our weather patterns, so we're seeing much more intense rain, and we're seeing hotter, drier summers. We're currently coming to the end, we hope, of a period of drought with a hosepipe ban. But these threats are all there, affecting the condition of our habitats, and the AiDash tool is going to help us to monitor the condition of our habitats in the face of all these changes. So that's another reason why baselining and monitoring on an ongoing basis using this tool is really, really helpful, and helping us to target how we proactively manage our land in the face of these threats that are ever present for our wildlife and biodiversity. Now, water companies their main purpose, their core purpose, is to provide drinking water and to provide wastewater services, but we have to do that in a way that's affordable for customers now and in the future. And we also have to do those core services in a way that keeps the environment thriving, because we're abstracting water and returning water when it's safe to do so. So there's a business purpose to this as well, in terms of the wider function of South West Water. So if we move on to the next slide, you'll see how the AiDash is helping to support delivery across a number of obligations. So managing land is something that we have to do as a landowner. So this tool is helping us to deliver towards our water industry National Environment Programme obligations and projects, one of which in this business plan period is about developing a biodiversity strategy on the back of phase 1 habitat survey. So this tool and this product has been really useful for that. It's also helping us to prepare to deliver the biodiversity performance commitment at the bottom of that list there in the next AMP, as well as the other benefits you can see there. So it's helping us towards our current catchment management, bespoke outcome delivery, incentive delivery. And it's helping us towards Water UK commitments, tree planting targets and net zero. And it's helping to support our environmental, social and governance, ESG agenda too. But it's that biodiversity performance commitment that we see greatest value for this product in. And the biodiversity performance commitment, if you're not aware of it, you will be in the future. Essentially, it's where you take a piece of land, do a baseline survey, make an intervention to enhance that habitat, and then you do another survey, and in an ideal world you'll have enhanced the biodiversity value of that site, and you can count that enhancement towards a biodiversity performance commitment. And we see AiDash as being really valuable in helping us to monitor our progress towards our biodiversity performance commitment, but also helping to provide a proxy for carbon accounting. So where we've done a biodiversity enhancement, there'll be 9 times out of 10 there'll be a carbon benefit as well. So we're hoping to expand the tool to give us that carbon proxy measure as well. So finally, going back to what I said at the beginning, my scepticism. So coming from a wildlife trust, as I said, which had responsibility for a local environmental record centre where people were employed to collect data, ecological data and environmental records, and would go out and do extensive surveys. I think the AiDash is providing a really useful and valuable tool alongside the local record centres and the ecology services that we all know and love. And yeah, I'd highly recommend having a look at the product and seeing how it can work for you too. So I think that's the end of my overview. I think that's my last slide. So I'm going to hand over to Morag.
Thank you, Carolyn. Perfect. So that was a really nice introduction to the next page, which is going to be us showcasing the tool itself. So it's going to be live. And I'll quickly run through essentially what you can expect. So I'm going to showcase what ISMS is. So it's a platform, it's all cloud-based. Some of it will probably look a little bit familiar. We'll look into the dashboard, some of the insights, as well as looking into individual sites. I'll then showcase a couple of the functionality in terms of looking at your site. So, imagine, a Carolyn or soon you'll meet Jules, utilizing this in the kind of everyday working scenario as a water company or kind of any use case that I'm sure will come to mind when you look at it. I'll also quickly showcase some of the site planning functionality, as well as the reporting, and we'll touch on some of the natural capital capability that the tool has as well. So now I'm going to go into the platform itself. For those of you that are watching it from the webinar, please do let anyone in the chat know if you can't see the tool. Is it all coming through? Perfect. So this is a demo environment. It's not Carolyn and Jules's environment. So, again, try and visualize you as a water company and the portfolio that you may have. In here, we have a lot. Yeah, I've got it. Is that okay? No, it's not the demo. No. Yeah. Sorry, this is live. So let's just try and figure out how we can make sure we can show you the screen that I'm looking at. Okay. Perfect. Lovely. Okay. Hopefully you can all now see my screen. So it's a very intuitive, perfect, thank you, cloud-based platform. So here is the dashboard. If you were a water company or any other company, you'd have your logo in here and you'd have all the insights from your portfolio. So the first thing you see is kind of essentially a snapshot of what your portfolio is telling you. We have lots of different tiles that tell you the different types of habitats that are included in your portfolio. If you have a target, for example, you can put that in place here. So some of our clients will input their natural capital target. Some may put in a biodiversity kind of enhancement target. And this is all customizable as a company, an organization sees fit. And again, the kind of landing page that we've developed is to really just give you insights. So rather than having to pull Excel reports and then create kind of insights on your own, we've tried to do that for you. We're consistently evolving and developing, so we are able to kind of, change this for you, and we'll consistently evolve as our clients kind of give us feedback. But essentially the dashboard, as I said, gives you a snapshot into what is happening with your portfolio, where are you in terms of your overall target and your annual one. And when I go into the site plans, this will make a little bit more sense because As Caroline talked about, you create your baseline, and then every time you kind of re-baseline or you review your portfolio, there should be an enhancement. And the planning functionality really allows you to demonstrate it, allows you to scenario plan, but also gives you that evidence for your kind of stakeholders or your investors or anyone else who has an invested interest in how you are doing in terms of biodiversity and natural capital. So as you can probably see on the page, there's lots of different insights that you can click into. All of it is live, and it kind of shows you what's happening in terms of your portfolio and all the different planning that you may have in kind of that your kind of is ongoing. These are all the different natural capitals that are enabled. So some of our clients will have more than others. As I said, this is a demo environment, so you can see here that we have kind of air quality, community, carbon flux. We also have the capability of showing carbon stock, flood mitigation, food production, pollination, recreation, and timber. Now, there is a kind of de facto standard that's starting to emerge, so that we know that the NCRAT tool is starting to be used a lot more by kind of clients, and we're building that into our tool. So very soon, future customers will be able to utilize or choose, any of the NCRAT models that we've enabled. But the tool is also able to include or kind of ingest any natural capital metrics that have already been decided by a client. So there are many who are already publishing and have their own targets, and we're able to take that into our tool and create a really dynamic ability to view how your natural capital metrics are doing based on the portfolio of land that you have. So hopefully you can see here how intuitive it is, all the different insights it gives you. And again, if I'm thinking about clients who are working in the business and want to have visuals that they can present to their leadership or to their stakeholders, this is a really nice way of taking that admin out from you, and you're able to kind of showcase live what's happening with the land that you have and the work that you're doing. So again, these are all really nice ways of visualizing the portfolio of land that everyone has. Down here, again, this is just the dashboard view. There's lots of different metrics that can be viewed, and there's lots of toggling that can happen. So you can look at the biodiversity values, you can kind of choose which piece of land has the most, and then you can click into them. This is the site management. I will click into, you can search by business unit. So again, a lot of our clients, if they want to be able to cut their portfolio into usability, so maybe some of their business workers want to be able to see a particular set of information, we can do all that. So I will take you into one of the sites that we've thought about as in terms of showcasing. It is, let me have a look. Just go into the site that I want. Again, you can also do it as a map view. So a lot of these are just demo, but you can click into it. So if you had a large large portfolio, you could then kind of view all the different pieces of different sites that you may have. I'll take you into the site that I want to showcase. And what's nice is you're able to kind of view all the different sites in context, and you're able to look at kind of where the site is, and there's lots of different kind of elements that you can choose. So when you scroll down, you can actually see the site itself. Now, through our process, what we do is we take satellite imagery and we run an algorithm through it, and then it is able to kind of pick out different habitats. It's able to kind of draw the polygon shapes. So if you think about ecologists on the ground who would used to have to do this themselves, and then they would also have to do the analysis and think through what they could do with that site, we've really tried to take that administration out from it. And it means that any ecologist who were to go onto the ground would have had all this administration done for them. The beauty of this, you will see a kind of map box enabled view. This isn't the satellite imagery that is being used, because we use really high grade satellite imagery to be able to do that habitat detection. So, this is just for the visual format, because it takes a lot of energy and a lot of memory to be able to showcase the satellite imagery. But this is the output. And there's a really easy way of looking at the different sites and all the different properties it may have. So you can look at the different habitats, you can look at the linear ones, you can look into the different other habitats that they have, but you can also click into them. So these are all polygon shapes that have been detected by the satellite imagery and the algorithms. And I must stress that while this is a tech-enabled platform, there are human beings and experienced ecologists who are sitting behind this, checking, really interacting with the results that come through and really making sure that the quality is checked, and anything that we learn, that we get wrong. So an example, with another client, the algorithm had never seen a model railway, for example. This is something that we haven't been able to teach the algorithm because they had never seen it. And this is something that, our ecologists will sit down and they will look through data, they will read through lots of different things to be able to understand exactly what's happening on the land. So while it very much is an efficient tech-enabled platform, it is very much underpinned by experienced human beings who are reviewing and making sure that the data is correct. And also the clients have the ability. I mean, you will all know your portfolio of land much better than we do, and they're able to then kind of tell us what's not working, what do we need to change, and there's a whole change request function I can showcase. So this will showcase all the different types, all the different portfolios of land, and it'll kind of let you know all the different information, different condition assessments. What I will say is condition assessments are still very much done by people. So if there has been any condition assessments done, we can sometimes take that and then update it. But most of the time, this information we do the habitat assessments, the habitat labeling, but we very much envisage that this is still a human-centric approach. And we are developing an app at the moment as well, so that will be released in the next couple of months, and that will really help any ecologists who are going out into the ground to really visualize what they have in front of them, and they're able to update the condition assessment there and then, and they can then send that back, and it will kind of make sure that the portfolio of land is really kind of reflecting the true kind of state of the land as it is at the moment. So here are all the different things that you can look at. You can unclick, you can look at only specific types of woodlands that you might, habitats that you might want to look at. You can then kind of click into it and you can see all the information. We also have designated sites enabled. So when you click on the designated sites, these are the ones that we have enabled here. You can look at the buffer zone from 1 kilometer all the way up to a customizable one. You can zoom out on the site as well, just to see the site in context. So in this case, we have protected drinking water nearby, and we also have a triple SI, so sites of special scientific interest. I'll move down to the bottom because, excuse me, here you can see a lot more information. So we allow, or we really encourage people to look at the site in its context. So if you wanted to look at any of the natural capital metrics, you can choose them here. We tend to use biodiversity most. You can look at it from a habitat or a polygon view as well. And that kind of gives you all the different information. Again, this really supports anyone who wants to understand the site in much better context, as well as being able to, really showcase to anyone else who's interested in the site what that site is made up of. Now, I'll very quickly go into the site planning, because this is a really kind of important part of our tool. And I encourage any of my clients to really think about do some of the scenario planning. So they might have a plan that's already in place or one that's been approved, but they might also just want to test out some thinking. So a lot of the time, and just full disclosure, I'm not an ecologist, so I may choose something that wouldn't be kind of possible in real life. But if you wanted to, for example, you can understand, you have a lowland mixed deciduous woodland. That's maybe not the best example, but if I were to choose one of the other areas, so in this case, if we took a neutral grassland, and this tells you what the baseline is, and then you can start thinking through some of the proposed changes that you might want to make. So say you have the grassland, you want to change it to, I don't know, potentially a modified grassland, and you would change the kind of condition. Then, we'd keep that as low, and then it will very quickly tell you what those kind of implications would have on your biodiversity. In this case, it would be negative. And I'm sure all the ecologists looking probably were shaking their head when I chose that, because it wouldn't be the thing that you would do. But again, it just allows you that scenario planning. It gives you that insight as to kind of what changes would happen and where kind of improvements would be made. And if you wanted to kind of go ahead with that, you can click next. You can update some of the common metrics if you wanted to as well. And again, it just makes this really nice and tidy, and it shows you what will happen if you were to go ahead, and then you could submit it for approval. In this case, someone would probably reject it. But again, it's that very neat workflow and this ability to showcase kind of, you know, what you're changing and why you're changing it and what implication that has on your kind of targets. So if you think back to that target setting that I talked about, that graph, this would obviously have a negative effect, so your graph would go down. And this is all in real time. I think this is one of the key kind of benefits of this tool as well, is that you're making changes and you can see in real time what's happening. And then when you want to go, you can showcase to any of your stakeholders or any meetings live what's happening, or any proposed, you know, suggestions anyone has for a project. You can go in, test that out, and you can quickly dismiss it as something that you don't want to do in case it doesn't have any value, or you can quickly approve it because you can see it has a huge uptake in biodiversity values. So as I said, clients really like this scenario modeling, but they also like to be able to see very quickly the impact that their decision making may have on their portfolio. So I'll just come back out of this because I don't want to approve the new plan. But as I said, it's very, very easy to do, and it's very quick to kind of see any of the impacts you may have. Now, I talked a little bit about reporting. So there's a couple of things that can be done. So if I go back to one of the sites, you can very quickly export these as a PDF as well. So for example, this site that we have, this is in an urban area. So again, it showcases the ability of the tool. You can zoom out quite far as well, so you can see where it is in its context. And then you can export this. So you can create a PDF. So for example, if you're going to a meeting, or if you have a report that you're creating and you need nice visuals, you're able to create the PDF of all the information that's in there. So you don't have to necessarily give access to every single person. You can kind of select all the details that you want. You might have the site, you want to have the map, and you might want to have polygon views. You can also go down and choose the designated sites. Again, this is a lot of information, so just really think about what it is you want to visualize. And then you can kind of preview the report. And again, essentially it will just look like the visual that you see here. And then you're able to export that and send that to anyone that has interest or who maybe is going on site. Again, as I said, you can use this on tablets, on the kind of desktop version, but we do have an app coming soon. So it'll be a really nice way for people to be as prepared as they can be when they're going out on site. The other reporting capability that we have is exporting essentially the portfolio information into an Excel. So I'm just trying to find where that is at the moment. So when you go into the site management, so this is all the information. Now, remember, this is a demo environment, so it has lots of weird and wonderful sites that we have in here, but a nice, tidy and organized client like South West Water has all their sites, all the different habitats, all the different business units, and then you're able to export essentially the site list. And this has a lot more information. So we hold everything in the back end. So have things like habitat details, or have all the different biodiversity values, and that will create a really nice Excel that can be utilized and then can be manipulated to find other bits of information. So I know Jules and I have worked together to find out kind of information really quickly for other colleagues that she may have, and it's been really nice and useful. And obviously it's the most up to date because it will have as many of the sites that have been ingested into the system. So that's essentially ISMS in a nutshell. Obviously, there's a lot more information that can be done. So if you are really interested, please do let us know in the chat, and we can always spend a bit more time with you on an individual basis. And if there are any questions, please put them in, because we will endeavour to answer them all. But yeah, this is a whistle-stop tour of ISMS. I know that we'll be going into a break shortly, and then you'll get to hear from the lovely Jules and from myself, and we'll go through our presentation that we've worked on, and hopefully some kind of questions have been developing as you've seen things, and we can answer them either throughout the presentation or at the end when we have the Q&A. So Chloe. Perfect. So is there a time that everyone should come back at?
Yeah, if we have a 15-minute break.
Perfect. Yeah, so we'll take 15 minutes. So if everyone has a cup of tea or coffee, yeah, we'll look forward to welcoming you back at 10 to or 5 to. Yeah, at 10:55. Great. I think we're live again.
Hello, everyone.
So Jules, do you want to introduce yourself? And I'll properly introduce myself, seeing as I didn't last time.
Yeah, I'm Jules Flory. I'm the biodiversity delivery manager at South West Water. I started this role about 5 years ago. This project started about a year ago. We'll talk more about that timescale in a minute. I'm delighted to be here. Thank you for inviting me.
Very happy to have you here. So I'm Maureen Leopold. I'm the Customer Success Manager, and I have a lovely job because I get to work with lots of really interesting clients, who Jules is one of them. So we're going to talk a little bit through if my slides work. I'm so sorry. I think I just hung up on us. So apologies, everyone. Hopefully you'll get to see our screen soon. As I said, I was just introducing myself, and we were going to go through to the next couple of slides. So we're all good. And again, sorry about that. So we've got a nice, interesting section where Jules and I are going to talk a little bit about the project that we've been working on together, and some of the insights that we've pulled through, some of the lessons learned, and I suppose we'll have a Q&A at the end as well. So why don't I hand over to you, Jules, and you can talk through some of the really interesting, I suppose, start of this whole project.
Absolutely. So for me, the project started, as I said, probably more about 2022, when I first heard of AiDash. We took a problem to them that was basically, we'd done 2 years hard baselining survey across that land holding estate that Carolyn kindly introduced us all to earlier. We'd done 3,824 hectares from memory of ground truth data, and I had reports and data sets that I'd been collating from all the public data, available data sets, but also working with local record centres to gather the best available information about the habitats and species using our sites. As some of those on the call will know, water companies have a special duty to look after wildlife. It's enshrined in some of the original law that the water industry is governed by. The Water Industry Act has a particular section on conservation, access and recreation, and how do we make sure that our land is both available to people to use but available for wildlife as well. So that was the driver, if you like, behind all that ground truthing survey. It was a particular bit of the WINEP. Again, something some of you may be familiar with, the Water Industry National Environment Plan, which is a 5-year deal we do with the Environment Agency and Natural England. How do you bring that data together? How do you turn huge reams of ecological report into usable insights for the business so that we can drive behaviour change? That was my passion. That's why we're here. So the problem was really good ground truth data. How do we drive improvement to those habitats? And then regulation started changing. So the Environment Act, again, a piece of legislation those on the call may be familiar with, means from November this year, we will have a duty every time we deliver any kind of work to deliver biodiversity net gain. If we're changing habitats, we need to leave those habitats in better condition after we've finished the work. And at some point in the last 12 months, we also discovered that Ofwat, our financial regulator as an industry, have decided to give the water industry specifically its own performance commitment, which will apply to all water companies. And that's the biodiversity performance commitment, which will become relevant, if you like, to the work we do on the ground from April 2025. We were interested in how do we best baseline such a complex land holding using these new tools for assessing biodiversity quality. So everything on this platform is designed around the biodiversity DEFRA metric. It uses the units that can be calculated against the size, type, distinctiveness, and condition, most importantly, of the habitat. It'll score the habitats and it'll enable us to start thinking about how we might improve them. South West Water is very linked in to our customers through lots of things going on one way or another. Our customers are telling us that they want us to go above and beyond our legal duties. We need to deliver against local nature recovery strategies and demonstrate that we're making a difference. Next slide, please. So this slide is supposed to say, you know, what's different about our approach here? What was that problem? So we had loads of data, not enough insights, loads of new regulation, and needed to think quite carefully about how to use that data to feed into the future strategy for the business. So AiDash basically took all the ground truth data that I'd gathered over 2.5 years through deploying real people out on site, looking at the sites and bringing back reams of paper, very large PDFs, and in some cases, you know, megabytes of data. But also, as I mentioned earlier, there's lots of publicly available data sources for this stuff. So AiDash arrived with very good awareness of how we could begin to utilise some of those core data sets that we all rely on, as well as an offering to use satellite imagery, a little bit of machine learning, algorithmic learning, and some AI to use our ground truth data and compare it to satellite images, and then begin to teach the system, this is how I understand it, how to interpret pictures in the future. So they're working with a wide range of stakeholders. We're not the only ones. It's quite important to me that they've been working directly with some government agencies to develop their condition assessments for woodland and grass types. And behind the scenes, the other very important thing is to nod to some very important people who've waded through my data and made sure it's landed as real ecologists with background in ecology, making sure that, if you like, any interpretation that goes onto the system is not it's verified by a human before it lands. So what do we get out of it? We get a company-wide view, which was very difficult to get from reams of ecological reports stored on a SharePoint site. Although people could go in and search for their particular site, this is a much easier, more intuitive, more user-friendly way for me to share information with my colleagues in engineering, other project managers, other planners inside the business. Sometimes we get questions from our investors who want to know how much of a particular habitat type we own. So all those questions have begun to get much easier to answer. Preparing for planning, when we're doing big schemes, again, this tool has been, if you like, instrumental in changing and putting us on a proactive footing around how we present what we know about our sites before we do make a change to them. Next slide. Right, so this is just to sort of tell you a bit about when AiDash got involved, which was October 2022, so it's only 10 months ago. And yes, when I arrived, I was just at the point where I was digesting that we had got to our 60% target. Every single big site with a designation, just to underline the fact we do have an awful lot of small sites, less than half a hectare big, but all the major sites have been ground truthed, and we've been able to use that ground truth data to inform our interpretation of other sites that haven't yet been visited. But the other thing that's come out with the tool now is that actually it's making it more efficient for ecologists when they go to site, because we can give them a starting place and take out some of the report writing drudge if we give them a template to fill in based on what we now know, because we've got this tool in place.
And it's fair to say as well that the backdrop of BNG changing as well has been a little bit challenging for all of us. And
I think that's
Yeah.
one of the questions, isn't it? It's like, so yes, everything in this tool does refer back to the methodology, and we've tried to keep up.
yeah, and it's been a challenge. What's nice is we get people who come to calls and they challenge us, you know, from other parts of the business, and it makes us think hard about what the product needs to do, you know, what are the kind of key critical things. And that's what's been so great about working with Renewables, is that we've been quite quickly being able to take some of the problem statements, some of the challenges, and reflect that back, you know, and kind of Jules and her team have been instrumental in making the tools as kind of, you know, user friendly and as efficient as it can be. So yeah, it's a big kind of collaborative effort, which has been lovely.
So yeah, we are using the data from the back of this portal to inform certain elements of our business case, which is due to go off to our financial regulator in October. So hence, yeah, being here today to share the success of this project, really. So this slide was obviously written 2 months ago. We've still got just under 7,000 hectares on the site, but we have actually, since that slide was made, added one more, because we're still looking at opportunities in the future to deliver our plans beyond our land holdings. We've, like I said before, discovered that we have 18,000 habitats now. So instead of just 2,000 polygons, we've got a data set of 18,000 habitat polygons. The stock value, the natural capital value, there's a lot of work gone into sort of, as a business, understanding the ecosystem services of the land that we own. And there's a lot of work really to do on that piece specifically, because the relationship to date has been very much focused on working on the DEFRA metric, biodiversity condition assessment, and making sure that we've got the right information stored. So where we have a ground truth data, that's all available on the system. And going forward, I'm really keen to see my project managers out in the field sending us information via the app to update anything that needs amending or improving. It needs to be interactive, and it's beginning to look like we can do that. Just to highlight, I mean, for us, we didn't know the ballpark of our land holding biodiversity value until this exercise was completed. And yeah, so just under 7,000 hectares of South West Water managed land, some of it's on long leases, comes to 50,000, just over 50,000 units of DEFRA metric value.
I think, I mean, one of the interesting things, and you know, one of the commitments we said during this webinar is we talk about some of the lessons learned. And I know during the whole project, you know, Jules has had to be very flexible and bring in other colleagues who maybe wouldn't have touched this project before. Now, ISMS is an amazing platform, but it does kind of demand sometimes quite perfect knowledge of your, you know, land holdings. And in some ways, it's been quite an interesting piece of due diligence, because, you know, our satellite imagery will snap certain boundaries, and if the shape files that we receive don't quite meet that, it creates a really interesting conversation internally. Equally, you know, our product needs to get a little bit more used to imperfection or not having, you know, clarity. So there's been a lot of kind of back and forth, and for us having to work together, work with your real estate team who've been excellent and have been asked questions that maybe they weren't expecting or haven't had to go back.
You've definitely stretched them, but they've got much faster answering land boundary questions in the time I've been working with them. So this is a slide for Maureen to talk to, just to summarise in a way, what do we get out of this tool? Because
Yeah, there's a lot.
There's a lot. I find myself always finding something new. One of the things I've found working with the team is that it's quite an exciting product or product development project for me, because it's been going at pace. I can honestly say that I go in 3 times a month, thereabouts, and there's always something new to find, because the team work really hard every Friday to issue fixes, but also a staged plan, which I'm delighted to have had the chance to engage with the business on.
Definitely. So I think, hopefully through the demo, you've had a better kind of insight into how the tool feels, what it can do, and I suppose kind of that evolution, because, as Jules said, we consistently listen to feedback. As our client base is growing as well, it's really interesting to see where we have trends and threads of the same feedback, and then we might have some outliers which are interesting for us to challenge, and maybe even sometimes take back to other clients and say, is this something that would be of use? Is this something that, you would also find useful? So yeah, at its core, it's really trying to give you that snapshot of your kind of portfolio. So your whole view, that maybe some clients haven't really had, because they've had various different systems, various different people working on, different platforms, and not really being able to stitch all that data together. And also, as we get to 2023, we really need to have a much better insight onto our data. And I think I saw a couple of questions in the chat about, can it take data in? Yes, depends on what kind of data. Can it export data? You've seen some of the PDF and the Excel, but also importantly, I know that kind of clients and some of your colleagues like to work in shapefile, so we can also do elements of that as well, so that again, you're not duplicating work. And the most important thing is that ecologists who are skilled, they're hard to come by, they're very much in demand. They shouldn't really be the ones sitting having to draw out habitats when you have automation that can do that for you, when you have apps that you can go out. We want to take away the drudge, we want to take away the boring stuff, and we want to let our ecologists do what they got the expertise in, what they like doing, and what they're skilled at doing. So really giving that portfolio view, having that ability to filter, view what it is that you want to be able to see in the, mass of land that, some of our clients have, really allowing some of that planning functionality, allowing that target tracking. And I think most importantly, it's that compliance with BNG. We have 4.0, which will be live very soon. We're currently in 3.1, and who knows what the future holds. But we are very clear that we want this product to take away the pressure of being compliant, take away the pressure of doing administration, and really empower our ecologists and everyone else to be able to do what is they're skilled at and what it is that they want to be able to do in their job. Because we just don't have to be sat at our desk doing it, when we can have some of your lovely colleagues out looking at bats, looking at newts, looking at all these other things that I had no idea were so important. So it's been a real pleasure to be able to, I suppose, allow that to happen. And I think, you and I have talked at length, Jules, about this presentation. And I think the key message we really want to get across is this tech really enables people to do their job better, and to be able to kind of do what it is that they love. It's not taking away anything. The only thing it's taking away, hopefully, is the drudgery, the admin, the stuff that can be automated. So hopefully any ecologists that are on really get that message, and are quite excited by what this can do for them. I'll quickly touch as well on, I suppose this is the key message of our whole presentation is, it's really ecologists.
It was the worry, if I'm honest. So the learning was, will ecologists be sidelined or offended? Will we upset our local record centres if we take this approach? And actually improving our data handling and our data response is improving in a way how much the team, which is quite stretched, can pull off in any given year. So I'm delighted. We're already seeing an uplift in proposals coming in, which takes me, I don't know, do you need to talk to that much?
No, keep going.
Because the next slide is just some quotes from colleagues. Because I reached out ahead of today's talk and just asked a few people that had been helping me trial and test and be early users and early adopters. And I got some lovely comments about this week from them. So if you click on.
Definitely, I'll just quickly
a
couple more things, but Jules also touched on, we have ecologists in-house, and I think what's been really nice is, one of our ecologists, Lauren, she lives in the Devon area. She knows the waterways and the areas where, Jules talks about, and they are our first, I suppose, gate that we need to cross in terms of making sure the platform meets those needs. We have Chris, who is an experienced ecologist who's been working out on the field, and again, it's just trying to translate the needs and the queries and the kind of regulatory compliance that they have to meet, and then taking it to our clients, who then give us even more feedback. So we have an in-house team of ecologists who really challenge, develop that product, and really help that translation piece when it comes to what our clients needs, and some of the fears or kind of potential worries that some may have. And then we also have a large in-house GIS team as well, who are able to really take satellite imagery, so the remote sensing that we have. And it's not just satellite imagery that we can work with as well. We can work with LiDAR data, we can work with drone data. So again, if you're sitting there and you're thinking, I have all this data, I'd like to be able to think through how I can translate that, have a conversation with us and let's see what we can do, because we have a huge data science team as well who love these types of problems. They love thinking through, what else could we do? How else can we make this easier? But at the heart of it, it really is, how do we make biodiversity, as well as other natural capital elements, kind of more accessible, easy, and really kind of enable our big organizations that we all, as citizens of this country and the world, really rely on to improve and hopefully make kind of the country that we live in much more rich when it comes to biodiversity. So it's really exciting to be able to work with it, and hopefully those ecologists on the call are excited about what it can do, but also can bring us challenges that we can start thinking through as well.
I don't want to forget my real audience either that might be on the call, which is all the engineers out there who have enough on their heads when they're trying to build a new treatment works or fix a problem on site, that I'm really confident that we're beginning to create a tool that they can interact with, because biodiversity isn't as predictable as engineers would like it to be, but it's really good to give them reassurance that we have, at least a starting point to begin to think about things earlier in their planning processes, so that we can minimise and adhere to the biodiversity hierarchy better. So I think that's a real learning, is that upfront information, even if it's not perfect, is a really good way to encourage people to think about mitigating biodiversity loss at earlier stages of the project.
Excellent.
So these are the quotes coming back from colleagues this week. I don't want to just read on the slide.
I think there's some nice themes, I think, and it's one that, my colleagues Mahesh and Shevchin are next door, the ones that they hear when they're going out and introducing these calls. So, quality and accuracy, of course, is a big concern. And I think what's been really nice, that while the tool will never know everything because it's not learned it yet, it is pretty high up there, and the quality that comes back. And I think the mitigation as well is that there's the ability to challenge it, whether that's from our own in-house ecologist before you even get to see it, or, the change functionality, which I've now just remembered I didn't show you, but it's very simple to use. You can go in and essentially kind of detail what it is that is incorrect, and then go back and showcase that. And then that's what we're able to then take back. We learn as a team, but also then we teach the algorithm so that for next time, it has a much better chance of getting it right. And I think what's nice is, David is an important stakeholder in this, and he's, I think probably seen a couple other tools that are out there.
Yes. So, and yes, and then we've got some fairly young colleagues, Lucy and Barney, who have both been able to use the data one way or another. Barney uses the maps, Lucy uses the data of the company level habitat condition to generate new projects, but also strategy that's informing our business plan submission next month.
Definitely. And I think, again, another message I hope that is clear is this isn't a static tool that is going to sit like this for the end of time. It is evolving, and it gets better with the more audiences, with the more with all the different levels that are engaging with it, and we'll have a small idea of how it can be changed. And, you know, because we're still growing as an organization ourselves, and we like to be very involved with our clients. We like to come out on site and get to visit people and really just listen and take that back. You know, not every single idea will make it into the product roadmap.
I want river catchments in there.
Yeah.
They're pushing back on that.
I'm sure it'll come, especially now that you've said it to everyone, Jules. But it's a really nice way for us to get to work, and again, try and make it a product that is fit for purpose and fit for use. So yeah, I suppose it's an opportunity for us to say a big thank you, and hopefully we get to work. And we do work with a couple other you know, water companies, and they're equally as good at giving us feedback and challenging us and saying, you know, why don't we change it this way, and this is what it will mean for me, and this is the problem statement that I'm trying to solve. So that's essentially a whistle-stop tour of the kind of, yeah, project that we've had. I think if we were to summarize, it's really taken a little bit of a brave step from someone like South West Water to, you know, go on this journey with us. It's really taking that feedback and kind of developing it. And I think it's the transparency of what we can let the technology do and what we can't, you know, and really allowing human beings still to be a big part of that. You know, satellite imagery, AI algorithms and tech will not solve every single thing. It will need people at the heart who are then able to take that analysis. And I think as well, you know, the data that we require a lot of the time, we want it in the most perfect condition, and that's not always been possible. And that then creates more conversations internally for you, but also means that from a tech point of view, we
can't make it better if we don't know that there's no issue, is my headline there. And I'd like to thank Carolyn and David because they kind of spotted this opportunity and gave the business the chance to, you know, make the step change. Sorry.
definitely, yeah.
Q&A. I think it's my job now to say we're going to take another very short break while we rearrange the stage.
Yeah.
And we'll be back having reviewed the questions so that we can take your questions and provide as many answers as what are available.
Definitely.
Hi guys, so thank you for that showcase today, guys. That was really, really great. So I'm going to run into some of the Q&A questions that have come in. So we've got on here that says, what we see here, so this is when you were showing your map, it says a land cover map. So what we see here is a land cover map. My understanding of habitat would require species recognition. What I'd rather see in a map, or which I'd rather see in a map. Are there any future plans for this?
Yeah, I mean, we've talked through as a group ourselves in terms of being able to enable symbols and pins that would then maybe indicate the species. I mean, probably my response, and you know, my colleagues who are answering questions can clarify this better. There will be some limitations to satellite imagery and to remote sensing. So if it's a data set that we can ingest and we can showcase on the map, we can do that. Again, you know, we're very good at kind of customizing things, and there's a roadmap that includes thinking through some of the symbols and pins of, you know, species that, you know, even Jules and some of her colleagues have brought up. But if there's an expectation that satellite imagery would find that for you, you know, it would be unlikely just because it's, yeah, the capability is just not there. But as I said, if it's a data layer, if it's a data set that you have, we can think through the ability of, you know, showcasing that in some visual format on the map to pinpoint maybe some type of species. I don't know, did you have a different response, Jules? Or?
Yes, I mean, only that, yes, I think the driving, I think I understand the intent behind the question, because again, you know, really detailed ecological map for a site can be absolutely more detailed than some of those images that were shown. But for the purposes of demonstrating habitat condition, it's giving us more detail than an awful lot of the phase 1 surveys that have been completed today. It's taking us on a journey towards better quality information on more sites than we had before. And the biodiversity performance metric is, I'm afraid, very geared towards habitat condition with very little reference to species.
Amazing, thank you. And so Bernie asked, what is the biodiversity measurement methodology that's used for this, or that's been used for this?
So Bernie, it's the BNG, so DEFRA's BNG. At the moment it's 3.1, we're at the moment kind of enabling 4.0, but there's a couple things that we need to translate, like strategic significance and the kind of encroachment stuff as well. So you know, if you think about that's the methodology for biodiversity anyway, and then we're at the moment enabling NCRAT for natural capital. So there'll be ones that, you know, if you didn't have natural capital metrics, you could select them. If you had your own ones that you had chosen, we can then, you know, translate that into a kind of tech, you know, plumbing and get that into the ISMS. But it's very much BNG 3.1 moving to 4.0 in the immediate future.
And sitting behind that is the UK HABs classification, which has just moved to version 2.0. And we're working quite hard on that to move it from what was a baseline in a variety of methodologies, so everything from NVC, natural vegetation classification type surveys. We use drones for that large land holding that is Burrator. We own about 2,000 hectares in one particular catchment. So everything that was done on that particular site was done to the priority habitats as defined by the NERC Act, sections 40 and 41. Hope that answers your question, Bernie.
Amazing, thank you. So we've got a question here that said it would be interesting to understand the interoperability of the platform and plugging in data from other systems to gain more system-wide perspective of biodiversity initiatives. So they're saying that, Jason was saying that it would be interesting to understand that how the platform and plugging in data kind of works. It says, with the move to open data, will the output be suitable to be made more widely available?
I think it's a really interesting question. I would say, you know, you know, the algorithms are ones that they're proprietary. They're ones that we kind of have been working a long time to develop, and they are part of our business model. I think, you know, we do a lot of work with other organizations where we think through, you know, for example, we've got a really interesting soil project that we want to work with, but we're currently working with a consultancy and thinking through how we then use that output for kind of some of the UN's work. So a lot of these maybe, you know, how we would utilize our skill set with a collaborator to then make that information public is probably something that we would maybe more go down the path of. And then, you know, obviously we can then take that learning and build that into our models. But I think it's a really interesting question. Probably in this whole kind of arena, we do want to be more kind of, yeah, giving with our data to support kind of.
There's a difference between output and the mechanism by which the ground truthing becomes an assumption, a working assumption, if you like, on land that hasn't yet been surveyed. Our ambition is to get those surveys happening, so it's all been ground truth. But in reality, when we do an intervention, it will be really useful to go back annually and see what the impact of that intervention is. Will that data be publicly available? If it, yeah, I think what I'm very keen on sharing appropriate biodiversity data, so species data. We submit thousands of records every quarter now, which is a massive step change again to our local record centres, which should all end up on the national hub. And yeah, it takes effort every year, but I'm hoping this tool enables us to also think about improved understanding of habitats and their condition, especially on county wildlife sites. So where that site's been recognised as unique and locally important, I would expect us to be able to share that data.
Amazing. So a couple of people have asked, when will the app be available?
Yeah, that's soon is the answer. So there's a beta version release ongoing at the moment. So at the moment we have a couple of ecologists who are out looking at a particular site and sending back condition data. So the beta version is released. I would say I'll need to get an exact timeline, but probably by the end of Q4, so by the end of this year, should have the app. If that's slightly kind of delayed, then you know, potentially my colleagues can say exactly, but that's the kind of release that we're aiming for. And it'll be an Android release, just to let everyone know, and then we'll be working on the iPhone version. Perfect. Yeah, Shashin's come back. Beta version is already released and we're working on it. Thank you, Shashin.
Amazing. So Ian said to meet a 10% BNG-PC from your mapped baseline units will require generating 5,300 BU through AMP8. Do you think this is realistic in 5 years?
Is that Southwest Water question, do you think? Yes.
It's a challenging target, isn't it? I think I wrote key learning because Chloe was like keen that I shared my key learnings. So one of the key insights that's come through this exercise for Southwest Water is a recognition that we have a very wide range of habitats in a wide range of condition. So I kind of had a suspicion based on my survey and my understanding of the survey, but now we look into more detail. There's a lot of improvement at every stage. So we've got a lot of poor to improve, a lot of moderate to improve, and a lot of high that probably can't be made much better very easily without lots of investment. So I think there's room for a 10% improvement across the land holding. Do I know exactly which habitats we're going to target? Yes, we've picked some for a wide range of reasons, but mostly to improve water quality at the top of the catchment. We're working on peatlands. We're looking to deliver right tree, right place, riparian corridors. And yeah, I don't know, those of you involved in business planning, we've got a tense few weeks still nailing down the ambition before the plan goes in, and then we have to wait for Ofwat to decide on the plan. So possible, yes. Funded in the next 5 years, don't know.
Amazing. Thank you for that. So another question that came through was actually what lessons were learned as part of the project and program. So have you got anything extra on top of that?
Let's slip that one in there. That's what I said. Oh, everyone needs a war rag. Keep you on task and chase the actions through and be highly organised. I think that was a bit of a breakthrough, wasn't it? Because when we first met in September, it was a very heavy duty data job, getting everything from one side of the Southwest Water firewall out into all those early stages of the project. But actually, I really do want to, I mean, key learnings, I'm really aware that AiDash have worked very hard to keep the project moving at pace. We've learned a lot about the condition of our habitats in terms of being able to see them in an aggregated form. I can't tell you what a difference it makes to have a user-friendly interface that I can share insights from with colleagues. So how can I put this? More and more of our sites seem to have a lot of potential to improve river condition, or the other way around. So it's extraordinary how many kilometres of hedgerow we own. It's extraordinary how many kilometres of next to a river we own as well. So the linear habitat information has been really insightful for targeting improvements. But yeah, everybody should have a more.
That's very kind. I think from my side, I think setting a bit of an expectation at the start with clients that, you know, data that will come will be imperfect, and maybe having a way in which we can ignore some of the imperfections because they don't have a biodiversity impact. And it means that I'm not bothering Jules all the time to say, you know, there's this tiny sliver of land that, you know, it doesn't quite meet our technical kind of gatekeeping.
It wasn't news, but our Southwest Water landholding data set is old and the result of many years of change. So yeah, modern standards, modern mapping standards, modern tools are nothing like the bits of paper we inherited when the water industry was created in 1989, before there was a thing called the land registry.
I think another thing that I've really learned is, you know, tech, when you're trying to codify something that is nuanced, is really difficult because, you know, I've sat in a room with 3 ecologists who all have a different view. So when you're trying to get a system that gives you a standard view or a standard ecological view, but you can't get 3 ecologists to decide what that standard ecological view is. It can be really difficult. So you have to, you know, accept that there's a little bit of a journey to be had, and that, you know, kind of imperfect shouldn't stand in the way of progress. And I think while we've made sure that everything is compliant with regulation, there will always be a couple of things where you're sat in front of ecologists that they might not quite agree on, and you need to take that, and you need to.
I think that comes back to that very first question about, you know, a real map in, how can I put it, when you're really focused on the delivery or the design of a particular intervention, you're not going to get away from traditional tools. But this is helping the business get its head around this new requirement, because it gives them a format to understand biodiversity value that didn't exist a few years ago.
Definitely. And I think making decisions, documenting them, and having an audit trail that you feel confident in and that you can back up. So if you are challenged either by your regulator, by your stakeholders, by your investors, you have a clear agreement between everyone. You know, this is the why we chose this is why we codified it this way, especially when there's nuance. And I think we've been quite good at being able to do that. So I think setting out a little bit of the expectation from a data side is a lessons learned for me. But I've been very lucky that I've had a client who's been very forgiving and very happy to go on the journey with us, and challenge us back. So that's been really good.
Well, satellites see the world in 3D, maps are 2D. That's basically where the slivers came from.
Yeah.
That's a key learning.
And that's actually a really nice point, though, Jules, because if you think about the capability that we have now, what we're doing now, based on the current technical ability of satellites, that's just going to get better, because satellite imagery, I think we had 1 meter, 1.5 a decade ago. Now it's at 30 centimeters and 50 centimeters. That means that from satellite, you can see something in this square box, which is pretty amazing. And that's just going to get better. It's going to become more commercially accessible. And so this is just the direction of travel Jules and her team have got on early. And we're hoping that kind of, you know, we keep going in that direction. I'm quite excited about what the next 5-10 years looks like.
Amazing. That was really great. Thanks, guys. And so Clive asked, what did you learn about how to run an innovation project, and would you do anything different if you did it again?
Well, I think it's really important to have a senior level sponsor like Carolyn Cadman. Did I say well? Yeah, because I meant to earlier. I think I said something slightly less articulate, but yeah, she's come in wanting to affect change, wanting to bring South West Water up to a standard that she expects us to meet. She wants us to be a key player in nature recovery. In terms of delivering an innovation project, how can I put this? I didn't think of it as innovation initially. It's like other projects in the sense that you need to have the resources. I've been lucky with those team members that sent the quotes in, because I needed extra hands on deck at various points. And I have been lucky, I think, that the team's getting bigger and they've grabbed this with both hands. So it would have been a tough thing to do alone. But with senior support, some very good support from graduates and other enthusiasts in the business, it's been whistle top store around everything else. So would I give it more time? Probably. I think that's usually something I'd say, but did I say earlier, get yourself a Morag?
Yeah.
I think I said month 1, I can't do all the project management on this as well as my day job. So that was a key step change for me when Morag came on, and just specifically started doing things like running weekly catch-ups, running through, we set up a risk register, running through things like the roadmap. So we've got a constant list of things that I'll be like, where's my pins? She'll be like, November, Jules, you asked me last week. So I'm aware of when things are coming and when things are landing. I had to manage expectations quite a lot inside the business, because they wanted to see progress before it could be achieved. I don't think South West Water necessarily understood quite how many man hours went into creating that baseline with AiDash colleagues across the world. So that was quite extraordinary. They wanted it on December 1st, then they wanted it on December 10th, and they got it on January 3rd. And actually, you know, maybe the business could have been a little bit more patient. I think innovation requires a bit of patience sometimes. But we're still doing it. We're still firing out quick fire questions, and more often than not comes back with half the answers.
With the promise to get the rest.
With the promise to get the rest.
I think from an outsider, from someone looking in, I would very much say enable those who are curious on an innovation project, those that can take, you know, maybe half the answer with a kind of opportunity to work together to get to the rest, especially when it's a tech project where, you know, sometimes we're building the algorithms as they kind of go in terms of what we're recognizing. I think empowering maybe some more junior colleagues who are curious, willing to, you know, learn a bit, and maybe who have an interest in kind of, you know, sustainability or biodiversity or whichever. And
I think you're right. It's about engaging different perspectives. So the engineers have been useful, the planners have been useful. I reached out to estates. So I think there's a lot about trying to get the tool. So in my mind, a key learning was to make sure that the tool is going to be suitable for the business. It's not just about what I want it to do. I mean, don't get me wrong. I think I've picked out some good details that needed bottoming out.
yeah,
But that's not the only thing that matters. Things like usability matters. Things like functionality matters. Reliability. So getting all those other people engaged, having that conversation by the water cooler, weirdly, has led to lots of good challenge from the business around how we, what we focus on. And when I talk about my pins, what I'm aware of is actually, no, we found some things that needed fixing before we could jump to species specific information. So I'm beginning to feel confident the tool will give me what I expect it to when I go into it. But there's been a period of development and bug fixing, which you'd expect with any software development.
I think, and one of the key changes that, well, I think a step change is the old-fashioned pen and paper and writing on walls, and we've had the opportunity to do that together. And I think from an innovation point of view, it's definitely unlocked a whole new set of kind of thinking for us. And
Literally, that's a fair point. We did do a very interactive session with big post-it boards about where we are, what we're expected to come in, and where we want to be in the future. And I think that was a really useful session, because that was when all those different points of views really crystallized on a plan.
Amazing. So yeah, thank you for that. That was really interesting. And so Jason asked, wondering if you've used the data from the work with South West Water to look at a broader scale benefits beyond the boundary of land owned managed by South West Water, and quantified these as value adds.
so potentially, I mean, South West Water's data is South West Water's data. It doesn't belong to us. We're custodians of it in terms of the platform. What is really important though is that when I talk about algorithms, you know, they are maturing consistently, and when it sees something that maybe has been on South West Water land and it's been corrected, that goes into the model, but that doesn't mean that we utilize or have access to it. It is a learning from that just so happens to be from that particular example, and that, you know, there's an element of that a little bit with condition assessments as well, but that's again very applicable to South West Water. But yeah, I would say most definitely kind of understanding different types of habitats has been key, and probably the most important one. And you know, one of our ecologists who lives near Jules or lives near South West Water wants to physically go out onto some of the land that South West Water have to do our own kind of condition assessments and do our own kind of testing. Again, it's really important for us from a data point of view that South West Water owns that data. It's theirs. It's not ours. We're just custodians of it, and kind of making sure that, you know, the platform is available for them to use.
So I think that's a really interesting question. My sense, and this is just my experience of doing these sorts of assessments, I genuinely do think UK HABS classification, condition assessment, DEFRA metric, we're still all learning. There will be more consistency in the future. So I like the idea of sharing our findings with other people, but I'm actually acutely aware that we've managed our land in a certain way for 30 years now, so it wouldn't necessarily translate to farmland, parkland particularly well. So there's something to be careful of there, because we haven't been farming the land and we haven't been, we've been using it. It has been either publicly accessed South West Water owned land around reservoirs and or an operational site with water company assets on it. So yeah, I'm just interested in the idea that if you did use the algorithm on other people's land, I'm not sure you'd get quite the answer you were expecting.
Amazing, thank you. And I don't know if you've answered this question already, but do you have an invasive species data layer?
Ah, yes. Who did that come from?
That came from Natasha Clark.
Natasha. Yeah, so the invasive non-native species layer, if you like, is part of my team's core reason for being. We share that with all the local record centres. Is it embedded in this system yet? I think it's on the roadmap. There's something about invasive non-native species data that I am not, I don't think this is an internal silo at all, but I'm not across it as much as I am other data sets, because I have a colleague, Kate Hills, who's our biosecurity and invasives manager, and I defer to her on all things to do with invasives. And one of the things she always talks about is you've got to be careful with this data, because you can treat an invasive non-native species if it's of a particular type, but you're whether it's showing as there or being managed or gone is actually something that needs a lot of verification around it. So yeah, I don't think the satellite data is quite good enough. We talked about this big for species ID just yet, but I do think that's one of those areas which the data will improve. It will become more appropriate. We have some fantastic survey data that I think should be in there as well, just looking at our reservoirs, using drones and different light, and it's all slightly beyond me, but would this data set fit in here particularly well? No, but we could put in a flag. That's the way we're beginning to think about it. It's like, this site has a really good survey, you can go and find it here. It's the kind of thing we'd be putting on here.
Amazing. And so it says, I've just got a couple more questions that have come in while we've been talking, so do bear with me. So it says here, so just to check, condition assessment is undertaken by the ecologist.
So the system, how can I put it? There was a screenshot earlier that was far too tiny, but I'll try and include in the case study an annotated diagram that shows you all it does is embed the questions. So a condition assessment on a particular habitat type is 6 or 7 questions. And what you're doing is you're taking that information that you've stored in a spreadsheet when you went out on site, and you're storing it in a central form. And it can be overwritten if it changes. So it's a planning tool, it's a scenario testing tool, and you need to understand those condition assessments using the DEFRA metric methodology in order to do that. What was the question? I feel like I'm nearly.
That's all right. So just to check, condition assessment is undertaken by the ecologist.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, there were 3 slides on that.
Yeah.
That's amazing, and they'll be available on the platform afterwards for people to refer back to, which is great. And just one more here. It just says, how do you assess ground vegetation quality under woodland?
Yeah, that's a good question. And so there's different. So an example that we had was around ponds. We noticed when we were working with another client that the satellite imagery, because it's looking down, there's tree canopy, it couldn't assess because it visually just couldn't see it. So there are sometimes data layers that can support us on that. So for example, I know that my colleague Lauren has pulled in a kind of ponds data set. Sometimes when we're doing quality assessments, our ecologists will also pull other different types of data that they can then kind of really get a good understanding. Sometimes they might even read reports. So from a visual perspective, it might not be always simple, but there are data layers that can support us. And this is potentially where the limitation is, where we would need someone who knows their site really well to say, by the way, there's this funny little thing that's underneath that tree. Can you, create a polygon out of that? And that's where, those who understand the sites are so key. But we do pull in other layers to help us understand that. So there's sometimes hedge growth under trees as well. So I think that's like another BNG.
So this is where I see the app coming in and being really helpful,
exactly.
because I've got rangers out there that are always sending me emails of something interesting under the woodland canopy that couldn't be spotted.
Yeah.
But in theory, as soon as we've got a geolocated tag, we can then begin to build a better picture of the quality of a woodland with one-off insights as well as specialist ecologists.
Amazing. Thanks, guys. So I think we've kind of come to the end of our Q&A session, but any questions that haven't been answered, these guys are going to answer them, and then we'll pop that on the platform alongside the case study and the recording of the showcase once we've got that available. I am just going to pop a poll into the chat.
Thank you.
And so I just would like to thank you guys for joining us today with AiDash and South West Water, and thank you guys for being so open and honest with all of your answers as well. So like, as I said, these guys will be answering any questions that are unanswered, and that will be available on our platform. And anyone that couldn't make the full session, the recording will also be available on our platform shortly. So to say thank you everyone for joining us today, and thank you guys. It's been really great.